Hey folks, John here at Hickory Forge. Welcome back. So, I just finished up that sword project, as you all know, and during that project, what occurred to me, the tool that would be really useful to me would be a straight peen hammer, because I was having to do some work drawing the stock out lengthwise, and when you have to do that with a cross peen, you have to kind of hold at an awkward angle and hit. You know, if I had a straight peen hammer is basically a peen, or a hammer where the peen is turned 90 degrees, so it's in line with the handle versus perpendicular to it. I can hold at a more natural angle and strike across the face of the anvil like that and get the lengthwise drawing out I'm looking for. So it's just a tool that I feel like would be useful to have for future swords and large blade projects. So that's what I'm going to make today. You know, feel free to stick around and check out how it's done. If you don't want to, don't. Anyway, let's get started. As always, first things first, we're just going to square this thing up a tad so we can get it to sit flat and punch our hole. Not trying to take it all the way to a square stock, just trying to get it to where it doesn't roll around. Alright, let's get the center hole marked. I'm just doing this by eye like I always do. About there should do it. Also, I've made a new hammer eye punch. There was nothing wrong with my old one. This one's just a tad bit longer, should make punching through bigger billets a little easier. So, once you've got that hole good and established, just start wailing away on that punch, working your way through. So, just like with any other manner of punching, you're going to punch about 3/4 of the way through from one side, then switch sides and come at it from the other side. And if you've lined everything up correctly, your holes should meet in the middle and leave you with a nice clean hole. Nothing to it, really. See? Got a nice clean hole. There's our plug. That's how the new punch worked pretty good. Now it's time to drift the eye of the hammer to shape. So what I've got here is a tool called the hammer eye drift. What this does is just shapes the inside of the hole to a hammer eye. So I'll drift from one side this heat, and the next heat will come in from the other side. And once we get about halfway up the drift, we'll start forming the cheeks of the hammer. Alright, we got our eye about halfway drifted. So we're just going to stick our drift in. Then we're going to tilt the billet towards us, do some forging on the high side, start spreading the cheeks out and flattening them out. Alright, now it's time to do some fullers. So I've got my guillotine tool out, got a set of fullering dies. As with everything, you want to work the billet hot and take short heats because it's such a big piece. If you let it get too cold, it's just not going to move. So when I do fullers, what I like to do is get my first set all the way I want them, and then just turn 45 degrees and start working the corners. That way, whenever I turn the full 90 degrees here, I'll already have a good place to start established. And it helps me keep my fullers in line a good bit better. You know, it's just something I've learned over the hammers I've made. So, last heat on the fullers for this side. So I'm just going to get it chucked into my dies, go 3 strikes. 45 degrees, 3 strikes. 45 degrees, 3 strikes. Just working my way all the way around the hammer. Bringing all those fullers into line real nice. So, now it's time to draw down a peen, so nothing to it really. Just holding it at an angle, striking at an angle. Turning the billet every so often to keep everything nice and centered. So, as you're forging down this peen, it's going to fish mouth on you. I don't know if you can see because the billet's pretty hot. But basically what happens is the outside of the metal moves faster than the inside. And it creates kind of a valley. And what you got to do is every few heats, you got to put your drift in, upend it, and upset that fish mouth back into itself before you can keep drawing down your peen. Now, you can skip this step and just cut off all the fish mouthing at the end, but I find you end up with a substantially shorter peen that way. So, it's up to you. Just taking 2 heats, drawing down the peen. And then I'll take 2 heats, dress up the fish mouthing. And I'll just keep going back and forth until I get the peen where I want it. Alright, so now I'm going to run some fullers on the top and bottom of the peen. I'm not going to do the sides because with a tapered piece like this, The tool just kind of wants to spit it out rather than fuller it. Fullers are done. Now I just need to drift the eye the rest of the way to shape. Last step in forging this thing. Just bang the drift in one last time from each side where it needs to go. And forge those cheeks nice and smooth. So, here's our hammer after forging. You shape it up pretty good. All I'm going to do now is grind the peen and grind the face. Just knock these corners off, grind it flat onto it, and blend it all together to make a nice full-layering peen. Knock all these edges off and crown it and blend it all together. And not a whole lot of work to do, so let's get to it. So I was watching Alex Steele the other day, and he talked a little bit about how he treats his hammerheads. And what he does with 1045 is he just heats up the working faces of the hammer with a torch until they're about cherry red orange or so, and then he just quenches them in water and doesn't worry about tempering them. So I'm going to give that a go and see how the hammer performs and how I like it. Alright, let's see if it worked. Yeah, it's definitely hard, so can't be done with a torch. So now let's do the other face, and we'll call this thing good. If the hammer holds up well, then this might be how I heat treat my hammers from now on, because it's definitely faster and a little more fuel efficient. That heat treat worked really well, actually. The faces are good and hard, but the body of the hammer is still soft, which is normally what I do when I temper hammers anyway, so that saves me the trouble. All that's left to do now is take a wire wheel to this thing and clean it up. I take this here Scotch-Brite wheel to the faces and make and fit a handle. The guy I normally buy my handles from is apparently not doing business anymore, so I gotta sit here and shape out a handle like it's the year freaking 1652, but it is what it is, so let's get it done. So, say I need to do some drawing out and I can't use the horn of my anvil for whatever reason. Holding the cross peen in line with the piece, is kind of awkward. So what I can do with the straight peen is I can hold 45 degrees, strike 45 degrees. And that's just a much more comfortable way to swing and draw out. See what we got going? So there you go, one straight peen hammer. My mark right there. Got a nice fat peen, should move metal pretty aggressively. Came out a little over 3 pounds, so it's a good weight for a general purpose forging hammer as well. It's just a nice hammer to have in your arsenal for when you need it. It should be useful whenever I do my next sword. But anyway, that's just the kind of, what, when, and why as far as straight peen hammers go. If you like what you saw, like, share, subscribe, all that jazz. Always give you more cool stuff coming. If you got any suggestions for projects you'd like to see, drop them in the comments. Y'all take care.